The appointments are lined up.
You waiting for somebody in there?
Got an appointment.
And it's not about what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's not personal. It's strictly business. It's time you and me had a private talk. Winger, step into my office.
It's Step Into My Office with Michael Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now.
All right, the regular season is over and there's no time to waste. So we had to bump the appointments up about 30 minutes early here today on a Black Monday. And we will start, though, with Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, I think, obviously you have tried to go the corporate route, right? You've given a general manager the authority. You've had Rich McKay with you for a zillion years. You got really close. 28-3. And just couldn't quite get it done. And you lose Kyle Shanahan, and the next thing you know, your program falls apart. So at this point in your career, I think it might be time to go find somebody to give you what you need from a culture standpoint, from somebody who can come in here and command the room. Because, look, let's face it, the attendance in Atlanta hasn't been good. The thing that you have to do as an owner, what the general manager has to do is fix the quarterback, fix the head coach. And if I'm you, I go big game hunting. I'll try to find, if Belichick's not out there, I think you should go after him hard. You've got great facilities. You've got a great situation in terms of Tampa, Carolina, New Orleans. Not a lot of teams you got to beat. You can sell that, but you're going to have to find somebody who can build a team because you've been 7-10 the last 3 years. And you know what's shocking about your team, Mr. Blank, is you're slow. You've been drafted all these high-profile offensive players in the first 10 picks, and you're slow. You can't make an explosive play. So something's wrong. And I think you need to find a team builder. I think you need to find somebody to come in and help build the team and have a head coach who can command the room. It's about leadership. As you know from starting Home Depot, it really comes down to great leadership. You better find one.
Yeah, the point that you bring up about the division being gettable, we saw 8-9, 9-8 be the record that won that division the last 2 years. It's like, if you bring someone in there that's competent, you should be able to take control of the NFC South. All right, up next is interim head coach Antonio Pierce for the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders ended their season on the right note, beating the Denver Broncos. Fans chanting AP. What does AP need to hear?
I think what AP needs to hear is simply just stop. Your records speak for itself. Just what he needs to do moving forward, what you need to do moving forward is put together a great staff. Is pretend you are the head coach. Act like the head coach. You've auditioned. You won 5 games. You've done a great job. Now, the main question you're going to have to answer is, who is going to be your offensive coordinator? How are you going to fix the offense? And how are you going to get a quarterback? That's the only thing that you should be worried about right now is fixing the offensive staff and showing Mark Davis you have a plan to fix the quarterback position. You and Champ Kelly, because obviously you're a partnership. That's the most important thing. Look, I'm going to keep saying this until I'm blue in the face. The job of a general manager, the job of anyone in the organization who makes decisions are 2 things. You got to pick the head coach and you got to find the quarterback. Once you do that, everything else falls in place. But if you don't do that correctly, ask Jimmy Haslam, ask David Tepper. If you don't do that correctly, you just spin your wheels. Ask the Chargers. Pick the quarterback, don't have the right coach. I know that everybody thinks that Brady won all those Super Bowls and he did it all by himself and it was 1 against 53. But the reality of it is great coach with a great quarterback wins Super Bowls and wins championships. And I think Pierce needs to be able to show Mark Davis he's got that plan.
Yeah, it was a 5-4 record over the 9 games for Antonio Pierce as the interim head coach. The locker room seems to want him, the fans seem to want him, but the decision that is ultimately the most impactful, though, is the one that Mark Davis will ultimately make. All right, Trent Baalke, general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars, a disastrous end of the season, 8-3, end the year 9-8, out of the playoffs. What does Baalke need to hear?
I think Trent's got the hardest job of all because he's got to teeter along the line of understanding that it's not always just the players and it's not always the coach's fault. It's one of the hardest challenges any personnel guy has in life is when you attack the coaching, you become a coach killer. And if you allow the coach to attack the players, then there's an imbalance. And so I think there needs to be, for Trent's sake, there needs to be a real hard conversation about where he went wrong and where Doug has gone wrong. And there got to be a mutual understanding of it. It's just not the coaching fault. It's just not the development fault. It's the fault of everyone. Because if he becomes like it was in San Francisco, where we've got really good players, you're not coaching them well, then it really splits the organization. And you have this civil war that's very problematic. So I really believe that he's got to unify the organization, even though I agree his team's way more talented than it has shown. It should have won more than 9 games. But once again, what Baalke's got to be able to do is understand what's the limitations of his quarterback. And it's clear he has limitations. It's 3 years now. He does dumb things on the field. Running that quarterback sneak was not a smart play. So he's going to have to figure out how to build the right team around this quarterback that we can't get away from. We're going to have to pay him. Now, how much we pay him, that remains to be seen. But we're going to have to pay him because the alternative is going back to having no chance. So this is a really challenging offseason for Baalke, and he's got to get his ego out of it. He's got to get his ego out of it, because if his ego's involved in any of this, we have better players and you're not coaching them well, it's going to create a civil war that doesn't end well.
Up next, a quarterback of a team that has collapsed. They went 10-1 to start the season, end the year 11-6, now a 5 seed in the NFC. Eagles QB Jalen Hurts, who now is leading this team that is literally limping into the postseason. What does he need to hear?
Well, what he needs to hear is what Javon Hargrave said. Hargrave has been in San Francisco, and he just went on a podcast, and nobody in Philadelphia is going to enjoy this at all. But Jalen, he just went on the podcast and said it's a completely different atmosphere in San Francisco than it is in Philadelphia in terms of work habits, in terms of how hard practice is. So everybody in Philly thinks you're working hard. But obviously there's a guy who's not there anymore who left for a huge contract to go to San Francisco who thinks it's a different place. And so, yeah, is last year the aberration, or is this year one of the things that we just can't stay healthy and stay together? I think it comes down to what Hargrave said. Are we working hard enough? It's clear, and I've said this all year, your defensive line's out of shape. They can't play more than 3 plays. There's no conditioning. So what he's saying has some merit here. And I think you as the leader of the team has to finally rectify that and have to come through. And you can't do it all by yourself, especially with your finger, which you admitted was disjointed, which got knocked out of place. Now, you have an extra day to get ready for the game, but I do think that's going to affect your throw. And so you're going to have to bring the team together as the leader.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts has also hinted at it earlier this season that maybe this team isn't as committed as it needs to be. So it sounds almost a little bit like what Javon Hargrave is saying now over with the 49ers. All right, the last appointment is Panthers quarterback Bryce Young. The team fired the head coach. They have now fired the general manager, Scott Fitterer. What does Bryce Young need to hear after a year where he went 2-14 as a starter?
Well, I think what he has to do is accept responsibility for a bad year. And then he's got to watch every single game of him playing. And then he's got to watch every single Drew Brees tape. And he's got to figure out a way where he can become like Drew Brees. That's got to be his mission. He's got to sit there and say, how do I improve myself? And it's not because we had a bad offense. It's how do I improve myself within the framework of playing in the NFL at a high level? Because the expectations for me are not going to be good. We gave up way too many draft picks for good. You're going to have to be great. You're going to have to be great. And the guy in Houston's become great. So stay within your lane. Don't focus on anything else other than what you do. Do what you do, but you're going to have to work really hard, and you're going to have to assume accountability for what happened there this year.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.